Alright, welcome back. On this video I want to cover the last two chapters in Tehanu. We're discussing people fearing Theru and her power. And I could be wrong here. I feel like what the point that's being made is that people will fear the power that women will have. It's sort of a fear of the unknown. And I just don't think, according to Ged and Tanar, anyone knows what that power will be once it arrives. And so I think that's what Theru represents, the harbinger of what power women will have in the future. Most of what happens in the second to the last chapter is we meet the master of Oak Farm, Tanar's son, Spark. And this is a critique on the character Spark, because as soon as we meet him, he's arriving home in a time when the king has put an end to piracy around Guin. And so he's returned home because his ship was carrying stolen goods. So his character is a bit shady. And as soon as he arrives, he asks Tanar, who's been running the farm while I've been gone if my father's dead? And it's like, dude, obviously Tanar, right? He just can't believe it was his mom. After Tanar expresses how excited and glad that she is that he's returned, we get this. He said nothing. He had nothing to offer and was unable to accept. And I think what's meant by that is he just doesn't have the depth of emotion to reciprocate back to his mom. He doesn't really care. He's sort of impassive and neutral about all this. And even if it's not about emotion, he has no way or ability to express his happiness to see her again. And then when Theru walks in, he makes a show of being offensively revolted and repulsed. He makes it blatantly obvious how horrified he is of Theru. And later we learn that after having seen Theru, he blames Theru for having been maimed, wondering what she possibly could have done in this life to deserve looking like that. He also expects that food will be prepared and served to him. And so I think the title of this chapter, The Master, is referring in one way to Spark and how he's just shown up. And even though he had abandoned the farm for years, and it's been Tanar and her former husband Flint who were taking care of it, he is now the rightful owner of it. And it's interesting, Tanar, when she met Laban the king, she just assumed that this is how her son would be. Dignified, respectful, and noble. And she actually thought that Laban was her son Spark at one point when she ran into him on the ship. But as soon as we meet Spark, we see how far short of this ideal that he falls. Tanar is incredibly ashamed by this fact and believes she's failed. And when Tanar and Ged and Theru leave Oak Farm and they head up to the Overfell to take care of Moss because she's sick, Spark is sad to see them go. But I think it's just because he doesn't have anyone to prepare things like food for him. And then at the very end of that chapter, we see that he helps Ged tie this knot and he shows him this clever way of tying his sack. I think the point here is just that he's not evil. Like, he's still a decent person. And he just harbors the beliefs that basically everyone else in this society harbors, right? We saw it with the Wizard Beach. We saw it with Wind Key. And it's just reached a peak of awfulness with evil bastards like Aspen. And so they make their way up to Reality. And it's pretty clear that Tanar has a curse on her. And as they get near the mansion of Reality, Theru runs away. Ged and Tanar walk right into Aspen. He's obviously cursed them. And I couldn't help but notice that Aspen makes this strange comment about Laban and the king wanting women to rule him because he's looking so desperately for this woman on Guin. So then a lot of stuff goes down, and Aspen is about to have Ged kill Tanar and then kill himself, but Theru had called Khaleesi, and he just flies in and just murks everybody, burns them all to death. And then just lands and kind of nonchalantly has a conversation. Hey, how you doing, Ged? and never even acknowledges that they're just dead right next to him, which I imagine is how a dragon would act. And it turns out that Theru did just know the language of the making, just as a dragon would, without ever having learned it. It's just a part of her nature, a part of her being. But it was interesting to see Kalessin return. It felt like it had a certain closure when the dragon returned again at the end. I had kind of been waiting for it the whole book. I did like that part. That part was cool. But yeah, overall, I really liked this book. It started out slow. I didn't know where it was gonna go. I felt like 2/3 of the way through, the action picks up. It got more tense. And the story just sort of transformed, for me at least. And I really appreciated that. Where there was this sudden commitment to the non-fantasy aspects of this story. And it just really grounded it for me. And there were a lot of critiques about Earthsea and just the world in general. And I could also see how for some people that might just not be as appealing, especially when inserted into an epic fantasy. But there was still a story here, a compelling story, and a lot of interesting insights into characters and how they've been living their lives since these certain events have happened in the past. And I also feel that, meaning in an Ursula Le Guin book is part of the reading experience. Uncovering the meaning, deciphering the meaning, kind of reveals a new way to think about the story and the elements in the story. And sometimes they can be cryptic, especially even in this book, with Auntie Moss. Like, sometimes it's hard to know what the hell she's talking about. But when you do decipher that meaning, I think it just adds another element to the experience. Like, you're uncovering something else in the book. And just from the other works that I've read, I knew that this would be part of the reading experience. So I have always enjoyed that part. You do have to read these books fairly slow, though, I think. I mean, you could read it fast and you would still, with this book, get the gist of what she was saying. But anyway, this was a good book. And as always, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I'll see you on the next video. Peace.